Imagine that you had been searching for what would be your forever home. You've checked around the internet, you've looked, you're trying to find the perfect little small town, and you just happen on it. Nice little place, relatively small town. It's got everything you could want: an elementary school, a junior high, a high school, close knit community, small businesses, wonderful old storefronts, historic buildings, the diner where all the locals get to hang out together, where all the old timers get together and grouse about what's going on in town. Everything you could ever want in a place to live. This is the place that you've decided will be your forever home. And then, through no fault of your own, through the actions or the negligence of other people, your forever home has now become forever hell. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to the electronic front porch and let's talk. It's been about a week since I was invited onto a live stream last Saturday night by a couple of very honorable, decent gentlemen. One of them is Flagrant Triggers and the other is Crash Mondo Jr. Together, they host a live stream called The Draw. They invited me on to listen to a recorded interview that Cam had done earlier in the day with one of the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, where the chemical train derailed back in early February. We listened to the interview. I can't even begin to verbalize the number of emotions that I felt. I had read news articles about the story. I'd read political reactions, but until you actually hear from one of the residents what they've been going through, you really don't have a feel for how badly these people, just living their lives, have been abandoned by state government, by the federal government, and by the cause of the accident, or should I say, the company that caused the accident. In this video, I want to give a brief recap as much as I can to some of the things that I heard, because I want this story to stay alive. I want this to be fresh on everybody's minds. In America, we go from one story to the next because everything is always moving so fast. We don't stop long enough to think about the impact to people's lives, especially the lives of the people of East Palestine, Ohio. I'm going to keep a link in the description of my video to that live stream from last Saturday night. I really recommend you go out and hear it, because once you do, it will absolutely make your blood boil. For those of you who may not be familiar with the story, or it's been a little while since you've looked at the details of it, let me refresh your memory or possibly even introduce you to this story for the first time. On the night of February 3rd, 2023, in East Palestine, Ohio, a train owned by Norfolk Southern was rolling through the town. Just about a mile above the town, the train derailed. Multiple cars. These cars were carrying chemicals, dangerous chemicals in some cases. An evacuation order was initially given. By 6 a.m. on Saturday morning, the mayor, the local fire chief, the local police chief gave an all clear, people could come back into town. No problem. Everyone sort of moved back in. The worst of it seemed to be over. The all clear was being given. Local officials felt like they had everything under control. Until Sunday afternoon, when police were coming around trying to find out who was in the zone. By Sunday evening, an evacuation order was given again. In the meantime, odors were starting to be smelled. Skin was starting to itch. Eyes were starting to burn. And people in the town began to realize something's definitely not right here. By the next day, Monday, the 6th of February, in consultation with the governor of the state of Ohio and the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Environmental Protection Agency initiated a controlled burn of the chemicals that had spilled out of the container cars. If you're wondering what that looks like, let me show you. Take a good look at this. That's a black cloud plume that went up into the sky High altitude could be seen from everywhere, could be seen from miles away. That was on Monday. 2 days later, on Wednesday, February the 8th, the trains were running again. Why? Because the evacuation order had been lifted. And that's kind of important, don't you know? Because by law, you can't run trains in an area where the evacuation order is in place. How do they get the trains back in, you say? Well, they put dirt over the affected areas, laid down track, trains are moving again. That's right. 4 or 5 days after the derailment, things were back to normal. Totally back to normal. Except for the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio. How are things going for the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio, you ask? Let me give you some ideas. The video that I'm about to show you was taken about 13 days after the train derailment. This is going to absolutely give you a lot of comfort for how these people are feeling right now, especially when you realize that everything is back to normal. Their quality of life is perfectly good. Take a look at this.
Wow.
Look at all that.
Look at it.
It's all in the bottom of the creek bed.
I don't know about you, but that's giving me all the warm and fuzzy that I can possibly handle. So beyond the water that, is otherwise now perfectly safe, perfectly normal, everything is fine, everybody go on about your business, things are perfectly good. What else is going on for the folks in East Palestine, Ohio? Oh, nothing except for any of the following. Reports of chemical bronchitis, headaches, migraines, rashes on necks. And this is just from people who might be in town for a few hours. Let's say these were outsiders. These are things that they've reported. You've got people who are getting sick and whole factories or businesses get shut down because there's nobody to work. Medical stations are set up. And according to Kat Smith, who was the lady who was being interviewed by Flagrant Triggers, the nurses aren't even taking vitals. No baseline to establish what the conditions are. The doctors are reaching out to the CDC asking, what do we test for here? And CDC can't tell them anything. What information the citizens are being given, either by medical experts or by government officials, is contradictory or in some cases otherwise useless. It got so bad at one point and tensions were running so high, fistfights were breaking out in town. Not with each other, mind you, not with one citizen of East Palestine to another citizen of East Palestine. Fistfights were breaking out with strangers who had brought water into town just to try and help. How are things going for the folks in East Palestine, Ohio? After all the help has come in from the state of Ohio, the EPA, the NTSB, everyone? Not real good. Now, I mentioned that the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio have been getting a lot of help. State help has been coming in from Ohio. Federal help has been coming in from Washington, D.C. But frankly, with friends like this, who needs enemies? Or at least that's what I have a feeling most people in East Palestine, Ohio would say. Because frankly, what levels of help they've gotten haven't been very helpful if you get right down to it. Information packets that are given out by the state or by the feds have information that really doesn't apply to what to do for your home or your town or for your own medical conditions. As far as, government officials being there, we've had a major chemical spill in the continental United States. A disaster that has the potential to affect the environment in that area for years to come. You would think that this is the sort of thing that the President of the United States would make it a point to be on the ground for, even if not there in the initial days. That you can understand. But at least at some point go there. Be the comforter in chief, as presidents in the past have done. As of the recording of this video, President Joe Biden hasn't been there at all. Oh, he says he'll go there at some point. At least Donald Trump showed up. I'll give him that much. He went there, he tried to be a comfort, tried to lift spirits, tried to let people know that they weren't forgotten. Now, maybe his trip did have some political motivations. I'm not going to deny that at all. But at least he tried to do the decent thing. The Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who we here on the front porch affectionately refer to as Alfred E. Newman, he didn't show up until after Trump did. And trust me, he didn't stay there long. He met with a few officials, looked over the scenery, and skedaddled as fast as he possibly could. He didn't really talk to anybody as far as the citizens are concerned. Frankly, government at the state and federal level has done a ham-handed, piss-poor job of doing anything to help these people. There is one person that I will give credit for having the most honest, most candid response to this disaster of anybody so far. Cat Smith made the statement that former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani was on the ground in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, I'll freely admit, Rudy is no expert on chemicals, but he is an expert on what you can do to try to manage an area after a disaster has taken place. The statement that he made, that the toxins and the chemicals in East Palestine, Ohio, were as bad or worse than what was in New York City right after 9/11. Like I said, that's probably the most honest response I've heard from anybody in government. And I'll give him credit for it. But as far as everybody else who's supposed to help, if this is their idea of help, somebody, well, everybody needs to step up their game. So where do we go from here? Who should be held responsible? And what's going to happen to the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio? Well, as far as who should be held responsible, as far as I'm concerned, this one's on Norfolk Southern. There were videos taken 20 miles before that derailment happened that showed flames coming out from the bottom of these cars where the axles were burning that hot. The train went over 3 different sensor arrays, giving a warning, or at least should have given a warning, to Norfolk Southern's engineer on that train, hey, this axle is burning hot, you need to stop the train. Now, there might be some piece of information that comes out when the final NTSB report is written that somehow exonerates Norfolk Southern. I kind of doubt it, but if it does, it does. But either way, negligence, their deliberate fault, hey, it was your train that went through East Palestine, Ohio. Norfolk Southern has the obligation, as far as I'm concerned, to make this right. They need to pay for the environmental cleanup, and for every citizen that has to sell their home, make it right. Give them full restitution. As far as the citizens themselves, they're still scared to death. Many of them have relatives outside of town. They can't ask them to come in because they don't know what they're going to walk into. And they can't really go visit their relatives right now because, number one, they don't have the money, and number two, they don't know what they'll be taking to them. As far as people from outside East Palestine, Ohio, articles are being written that folks further down the stream, down in the towns along the Ohio River, are very concerned about the quality of their water. Are these chemicals going to get into their systems? We don't know. Hopefully not. I think the mood of the folks in East Palestine, Ohio can be summed up best by a quote from Cat Smith's husband when he said, "We're not dying quickly, we're just slowly zipping up the body bag." Will help come to these people from the government? Who knows? Should help come to them from Norfolk Southern? Absolutely. But in the meanwhile, there are some things that you and I can do to help. I mentioned my friend Flagrant Triggers. Aside from having his own YouTube page, he has a website for a t-shirt company that he owns, and he has designed a particular t-shirt where the profits from the sale of each of these shirts will go to the folks in East Palestine, Ohio. Give me a second and I will show it to you. I think you'll kind of recognize where this one might come from. Cam has a very unique sense of humor, and it shows up in this design. Folks, I know times are difficult for everybody right now, but if you can, go out, buy a t-shirt. Help the folks in East Palestine, Ohio out. Another thing that's being done is that Kat Smith has set up a GoFundMe page for herself. I'll put the link to it in the description of this YouTube video, but if you have a chance, please go out and donate. Again, I know times are tough for everybody. Everybody's situations are different. But if you have a few dollars to spare and you want to help someone directly affected by what happened that night, please go out and give money to the GoFundMe page. As I wrap this up, I'll give my normal ending, but with a little less gusto, especially given the seriousness of the topic. Please, if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. Number 2, please share the video. This is something that everybody needs to see. This one, if we can, let's put this out on the forefront of everyone's mind. Let's not just move on to the new shiny. Let's do what we can to help these people, even if it's keeping the memory of what happened alive. Keep it fresh on everyone's mind. Because this is something, lay aside the accident itself, the failure on so many levels that these people are having to deal with, from Norfolk Southern, from the government. Nobody should have to go through this. So if we can just keep this moving around, that'd be fantastic. So please subscribe, share the video, hit the like button. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.